How and why did the founders create America's system of federalism? How does federalism limit the powers of both the national government and the states? How does federalism extend opportunities for citizen participation? You may begin.
In an 1816 letter to Joseph C. Campbell, President Thomas Jefferson wrote that an ideal government is one in which the state republics and the republics of the Union would each hold its delegated share of powers and constitute truly a system of fundamental balances and checks for the government. Federalism is the fundamental balance between these state governments and the larger centralized government. Because both levels are able to check the powers of the other, there is little room for abuses of power by either. Federalist system benefits citizens through the greater opportunity for participation and lesser opportunity for abuse of powers.
Federalism was created by the founders as a compromise between the British unitary system of government and the idiosyncratic state-based Articles of Confederation. The salutary neglect period formed between Britain and the colonies inspired the American people to begin pushing for their independence. After the Revolution, in an attempt to return to self-rule, the Articles of Confederation was created to put the power of government in the hands of the states, not the central government. However, the lack of uniformity and enforcement of the Articles set a course for failure. In response, the United States federal system was formed. Articles 1, 2, and 3 address the powers and limits on both the national government and the states, while Article 4 enumerates the relationship among the states, such as guaranteeing full faith and credit and privileges and immunities. This document served to create the fundamental balance between the state and the national government that the colonists were striving to achieve.
Following the ratification debates, the 10th Amendment was added to further balance this tension, reserving all power not specifically given to the federal government to the states. In the 1992 case, Prince v. United States, the Supreme Court ruled that the federal government's mandate that local law enforcement officers perform background checks on potential gun owners was unconstitutional because it violated the state's reserved powers.
Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution states that this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance therefore of, shall be the supreme law of the land. Congress has used this supremacy clause, as well as other powers given to them in the Constitution, like the power to regulate interstate commerce, as a basis for passing legislation that affects state sovereignty. The powers of states' governments are limited under the federalist system because they cannot directly contradict or supersede the federal government. In Nevada, a debated issue that deals with the state sovereignty is the legality of the Yucca Mountain nuclear waste disposal site. In 1987, the Department of Energy proposed that the federally owned land of Yucca Mountain store nuclear waste. Despite Nevada's passage of the law mandating that it is unlawful for any person or government entity to store high-level radioactive waste in Nevada, the Ninth Circuit Court ruled that the site could be used by the Department of Energy, thus rejecting Nevada's claims that it violated the 10th Amendment. Because of this wide interpretation of the Supremacy Clause and Interstate Commerce Clause, state governments are limited in scope and laws they can pass.
Federalism has been beneficial for citizen participation by allowing citizens to influence local, state, and national governments. Voting at all levels is a key part of citizen participation, but there are many other ways citizens can participate in a federalist system. States have often been called the laboratories of democracy and allow for more direct citizen participation through ballot initiatives and referendums that give citizens a more active role in the drafting and passage of legislation. Federalism delegates power to smaller localized governments, and citizens who participate in local governments are more likely to affect change when expressing their opinion through the public meetings and petitioning. Recently in Reno, there has been a debate on whether or not to add bike lanes to Virginia Street, a major street that stretches throughout the city, which would potentially affect traffic flow. Because of the mixed opinions collected during public meetings, the city of Reno decided to only add bike lanes in areas with lower automobile traffic. In addition, federalism allows local and state governments to control who votes in their elections, thereby extending participation further to more citizens. In 2015, the city of San Francisco lowered the voting age for local elections to 16, giving young voters more time to learn about the voting process and helping them to become more politically engaged. This in turn helps participation at the national level because by age 18, citizens have learned the political process and can become more active citizens. Thank you.
Time?
4:37.
We're always not supposed to.
Are states sovereign in our system of federalism?
Federalism sets up a basis upon where states are not truly sovereign, but they have sovereignty to an extent. It's all part of the same system. You can think of federalism as an onion. It has layers. There's the national level, and then there's the state level. And you know, like the filmy part that gets stuck in between layers? That's like the part that gets stuck in between like the national and state levels. They have to compromise on those areas.
That'll do.
Okay. That's it?
We're good.
Okay, never mind.
I'll just take that.
Never mind.
But,
No,
So, wait.
I'm,
Sorry.
You got me.
Alright, well, I'll start chronologically. How was the Supreme Court instrumental in confirming the supremacy of the national government early on in the United States? You guys quoted a case from the 20th century. I'm looking for how the Supreme Court really established the supremacy of the national government early on in this country.
The Supreme Court really established the supremacy because it gave states equal representation, and it just made, I don't know, oh my god, this is so good. Can you re-say it? Sorry. The supremacy.
Talking about early Supreme Court decisions
Mhm.
that favored the national government over state governments.
it's there. It's literally in my head. Hang on.
Gibbons versus Ogden,
I'm thinking.
McCullough versus Maryland,
Oh, okay, I
That's-
literally just
yeah.
read it. Okay.
Barry versus Baltimore.
you know,
Look,
That's the national banks one.
That's the national bank.
And how it like, it dealt with the necessary and proper clause, and how the, national government had to overrule states and what states thought was in the Constitution, and they had to expand what was best for the government. And so
What did Maryland try to do?
they tried
Create
to,
their own bank.
yeah, they tried,
Mhm.
no, they sued because,
They tried to tax the national bank,
mhm.
right?
Oh, okay.
They tried to tax the national bank.
Why
So-
would they want to tax the national bank?
they wanted to destroy it.
Yeah, because they wanted to set up the
Mhm.
supremacy of the national government, or they wanted to, not Maryland wanted to destroy the supremacy of the national government because they created it through the necessary and proper clause, and that was a case where it promoted the supremacy of the national government over the state governments, because it showed that although the states were trying to tax and destroy this, that because of things like the necessary and proper clause, the government was superior to them and they could create things over them, whether they liked it or not, for the better of the nation, ultimately. Once you rephrase
I
it,
know
that
which
got better.
article it was. I'll tell you what article Congress has that we're in.
You guys mentioned, in your testimony that, Nevada passed a law mandating that, quote, "it is unlawful for any person or governmental entity to store high-level radioactive waste in Nevada." What is this tactic called, and has it been tried before in US history? Tactic of a state passing a law saying the government, the federal government cannot do something within its borders.
I don't know what it's called, but I know it has been tried in history. I can't give you a specific case, but I do know that it has been tried in multiple cases throughout, throughout history. Yeah, he's the one that makes
What
this
was the
part.
deal with the
Oh,
with the
the-
pigs and the?
The cattle, wasn't it in Nevada?
No. This is the Supreme Court.
Is this a countess?
Sorry, we're short, so we're just kind of like.
Like just clap.
Let's try a different way. I think it's kind of getting in the same direction. How did the Civil War and the issues leading up to the Civil War have an impact on this idea of federalism? And then how did the Civil War and then the period after the Civil War change the relationship between states and federal government?
Well, after the Civil War, the Articles of Confederation were set up.
Civil War.
Oh, wait, not the Civil, it's just the West War.
I was like, I think
I was-
we're.
So I guess prior to that then, that would be prior, yeah. So prior to that then, the Articles of Confederation were set up.
Civil War.
No, okay, when were they set up?
Articles were revolutionary.
Okay, so was the Civil War like way before that?
Civil War.
After.
What is
Take a breath.
what is nullification?
Is that when states try?
States make a law
to-
that's again, okay,
Can you give me
fair enough.
maybe
Oh, my
one or
goodness.
2 or 3 examples of the use of nullification early in American history?
Mr. Carlin, I remember you talking about this. And it's killing me.
You just said you failed at CrossFit.
Yeah, that's okay, but I know,
I know so many currents, but no.
How much time we have in cross X?
Oh, I
Oh,
have
I
been
think
timing
it's-
cross X.
It's usually just 3 questions,
three
I guess.
questions. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
stop,
we
we'll
don't
just, we'll
usually-
stop at cross X and we'll count on it. Relax.
Let's
Alright.
talk
Let's talk, let's talk.
Do you wanna
guys.
talk on the record or off the record?
off.
There you go.